Hello, Taylor Ellwood here, and welcome to the latest edition of Behind the Scenes. I'll start a little bit later than I wanted because I was busy making dinner for my family. So, priorities though, you gotta get food on the table sometimes. So today I wanted to talk about how I choose the settings I choose for my stories and like what my thought process is for that. If you've already subscribed to my fiction to my fiction, you've gotten the deadly mental waves of flour, and so you know that in that story the setting is a fishbowl, and in the story that I'm writing, the serial story that I'm writing on the E-list, the setting is actually set in California, planet Earth. And in my forthcoming novels, Learning How to Fly and the Zombie Apocalypse Call Center, the setting is also basically planet Earth. It's at a call, like in the case of the Zombie Apocalypse Call Center, it's it's set at a call center, and but it's all set in the United States basically. Really, um, I don't have a specific state in mind like I do in the case of When Magic Becomes Real. That's the serial story, but in both Learning How to Fly and in the Zombie Apocalypse Call Center, the setting is basically the United States. Um, of course, when I talk about setting, I'm not just talking about the physical location, though. I'm also talking about the time. Like when is this happening? And in most of my stories, I would say that the time of the setting is set basically in the present or in the near future. It's really ideally done around this notion of, okay, this could be an alternative present for us. This could be this could be a near future that could occur. In the case of the Deadly Mental Waves of Flour, it really is set basically in the present. It's a fishbowl, and it's the lives of these three fish in the fishbowl, and what happens when suddenly a flower is introduced to the fishbowl, and the inevitable havoc that results with those three fish and how they adapt to having the presence of the flower nearby. In the case of When Magic Becomes Real, it initially starts out in the past. It's a family that's coming home from a trip to Disneyland, and then things happen, and the parents disappear, and the two kids suddenly have magical powers. And then it gradually moves toward the present or a near future where eventually things happen the way they need to happen. I'm not going to really tell you, but it's set in California because of the trip to Disneyland, and this family is from California, and they're going home to Sacramento in this case. And I would say, I'm familiar enough with the area. I've traveled to California a few times, that I was able to come up with some pretty reasonable settings for what happens, where it happens, and why it happens the way it does. I remember driving through like a small town, and that's where part of the setting happens, and so I remembered that small town pretty well, and I tried to set up the experience for the characters in that small town. Um, you know, I also try to do some research into the actual setting. So, I'll like, some of it's based on my experiences, but some of it's based off of like the research, like what would you expect in this area? Like, for example, in When Magic Becomes Real, it's set basically in the part of California that's essentially desert. So, I wanted to think about like, what would this town look like? Who would live there, what would be the kind of the political religious bent, things along those lines. um, in the case of the Zombie Apocalypse Call Center, that's going to be coming out later this year, the setting is in a call center, and of course I've actually worked in a call center. I currently work at a call center, so it's very much based on my own experience, and I try to really keep in mind like what that setting is like, and how to show a similar kind of setting with all the office politics and pettiness that inevitably occurs within any call center, as well as just the kind of the reality of what it's like to work there, where you have people that are kind of in friendly competition with each other. They're frenemies in a way, you know. There's aspects of that. Um, in some cases, they're friends, but you know, it's working in a team. But at the same time, you know, there's that inevitable tension, and of course, there's the tension of dealing with the callers themselves. So that goes into my setting, but also, you know, the office environment. You have basically have cubicles. You know, you have people on phones, maybe on chat. You have people interacting with each other in virtually, you know, trying to help each other out. But also, you have the inevitable clashes, you know, between management and workers and all the other things that occur in such a setting. So, you know, I try to really take that experience and also, you know, my research was involved talking to other coworkers about their experiences at different call centers and finding out that really it seems to be pretty universal across the board. In the case of learning how to fly, I would say that really the setting is Eastern United States or maybe Midwest, like Ohio, partially because when I first started writing that book way back when, that's where I lived. Um, you know, it's set in the near future. The idea really is that, you know, you have these superheroes and supervillains running around with powers. And of course, you know, the initial premise is, you know, what happens where you have a superhero who doesn't quite fly the way he should. He can fly, but he's not very good at it. You know, what would they even do for a superhero like that? And so the setting, the setting at time, you know, it shifts, of course, from initially his home and the superhero remedial school to some other places that are a little more off the grid, and you know, the superhero prison that he ends up in. Not really spoiling anything here. You'll discover it pretty quickly when you read the book. But it's again, it's the setting is really based around this idea of, you know, trying to stay with the planet Earth. Now you might wonder, well, why does Taylor stick with the planet Earth? Why not, you know, create a fantasy world? And I have actually in some of my fiction writing that you probably will never read because it's really bad, from way back when, I have actually, you know, had science fiction or fantasy worlds, and I may again. But I think that for me right now, part of it is really kind of taking the settings that I do know and what I'm comfortable with and playing with it, and at the same time kind of presenting the possibility of alternate Earths and what those alternate Earths look like. You know, how are they similar? How are they different? And I think there is something to be said for just having some fun with the place that you live, you know, and imagining an alternate world. So that's really what's going into that. And I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you later this summer with the debut of my first book, Learning How to Fly, which will be coming out either in August or September at the latest. It is off with the editor right now, the final part of it. So I'm really excited about that. And then I'm going to be contacting the cover artist next. So, you know, expect to hear some news sometime in the near future about Learning How to Fly. I'm just super psyched about it and really pleased. And thanks for watching the video. And I'll see you next week for the next behind the scenes. And we'll see what we talk about then. Take care and catch you later.